Hello guys, it's ZK, and today I'm going to be talking about Killing Floor 3. So I've basically been given access to an early build of the game. So what you do see, of course, is not final. Don't take it as a final product. And at the time of the recording, I haven't really leveled up my character too much. So it's just going to be more of like a basic overview, as there's still things which I don't know myself. And of course, with these reviews, I'll try and be unbiased as possible. So everything that I do say in the video is all my own thoughts and not influenced by anybody else whatsoever. But anyway, starting off with the basics. So you have a menu screen, of course. You know, you got your typical stuff, like multiplayer, solo, exit game, or you can Alt F4. You know, it's quite simple and clean, which I like. You know, you got your character in the background. It looks quite clean. Not to mention, you've also got links to other stuff as well, so you can keep up to date with that. Now, this actually surprised me, but when you actually go and click solo or multiplayer, you actually go to like a hub area instead of like another menu. And in this hub area, you can basically move around and interact with different stuff, a bit like Helldivers or Deep Rock. So instead of Killing Floor 2's like multiple menus and stuff, you basically have like a whole area to move around in, start missions, you know, customize your weapons, all that. And at first I didn't know if this actually fitted with the game. I was actually quite surprised, to be honest, because I never even had any information about this. I feel like Tripwire could have advertised this area a little bit more. I mean, it's definitely not a bad area, and I know what some people are thinking. They're going to think, well, this doesn't fit with Killing Floor 3 at all. It's not a Killing Floor game. And to be fair with you, the Stronghold area does actually have some use to it. You have a firing range, which I've seen in the previous trailers, which allows you to customize your weapons. And the firing range is good for getting an overall feel and look for your gun, so you can basically customize it to how you want to play, although you do shoot metal targets rather than actual Zeds. And it is also, of course, a great place for testing attachments such as sights, lasers, scopes, like basically anything. And speaking of weapon customization, you do actually unlock it by playing the game. So when you complete games, you basically unlock random weapon attachments, and using Zed Tech, Horsing Tech, Zed resources around the map, you can craft your attachments. So basically you have to destroy cameras, Horsing Tech, even kill Zeds for like materials to craft your attachments. To be fair, I do prefer the system of leveling up and unlocking attachments, you know, like a Call of Duty kind of system, but I do feel like what they've done here is quite unique, as it does encourage you to look a lot more closely at the map itself and try and find things to scrap down for resources. And one of my favourite things for Killing Floor 3 is actually the skill trees, and they've gone a lot more deeper into the progression of the skill trees. So of course with Killing Floor 2 you could pick one skill from each tier, which I think was quite limited. I mean, it is better than Killing Floor 1's passive progression, but Killing Floor 3 is a lot more in depth. So now you can pick up to 3 skills per tier. Definitely does make you think carefully about which one you want to go for. And there's actually 30 levels rather than 25, and every 2 levels you can select a skill for passives, throwables and gadgets. Passives are basically just like your damage and stuff you do in game. Throwables is like grenades, and you got your gadgets, which is basically like your Hellion for commando. And not to mention, you can also upgrade each skill as well, which you can't do in Killing Floor 2. Quite interesting. You can upgrade it using proficiency points, which upgrading the skill does go towards your proficiency rank, which is your basically equivalent to prestige, I would say. And proficiency points, of course, can be earned by completing survival waves, killing Zeds, using tools, or reviving allies, which I quite like a lot. Does encourage a lot of teamwork. So in the hub, also known as the Stronghold, you can also select your next mission. The maps are actually still listed like Killing Floor 2, but it's actually pinpointed on like a world map, which I think is cool. You've also got a weekly mutations, which is basically like a classic mode. So you got no gadgets, attachments, classic mode essentially. To start missions, you basically jump into a VTOL and you basically fly out to the mission areas, which I wasn't too sure with at first, but I mean, it is kind of cool how you fly to different areas. I think it definitely makes the world feel a lot larger, in my opinion, because I know in Killing Floor 1 you were limited to the UK, only, and then Killing Floor 2 you were limited to Europe. But now you have a world map, then surely you must be able to fly out to many different areas. So like the locations and the map variety is obviously going to be very interesting. So when you are in a game lobby, you do get a operational budget, which basically means you can choose weapons and gadgets like early. So in Killing Floor 2, for example, you started off with like a, I don't know, AR-15 for commando, and you only had an AR-15 every time you started, and you had to build up your arsenal the further you went. But with your operational budget, you can take weapons early, and you can even take custom weapons which you've built. You can even get equipment or better armor, which I'll go into more later. And you see, operational budget, it can have its pros and cons. I do feel like it might make the lower ways a bit too easy, but then again, the operational budget is very limited, so you can't just take like anything you want. You do have to be like a high level in order to get more budget. And moving on to the most important thing, the gameplay. And to be fair, I think this is where Killing Floor 3 is at its strongest. I absolutely love the gameplay. So of course you do have your solo multiplayer matches. The servers actually do feel quite stable, which is good. I know an issue with Killing Floor 2 is different server regions means you will get more ping. And of course if you're playing a precision perk, it might make it a bit difficult. But considering I was playing with other people in different regions, you know, the server still felt very stable. And the gameplay, I'm just going to warn you now, is very intense with 6-player Hell on Earth. And in terms of combat and game pace, sliding and vaulting are a must-have if you want to survive. And also bashing is also quite effective for trash. I know some people are a bit on the fence with movement, and I do understand where they're coming from, but you do honestly need it because Zeds are a lot more advanced. It does make dodging their attacks a lot easier, whereas in Killing Floor 2 you could only run and jump. And going back to the bashing, it does feel quite smooth and satisfying, and you can use it to stop enemy attacks. You can also use it to take the head clean off, which is pretty funny. You've also got explosive barrels around the map to help clear trash, and you've also got big oil drums which actually sets fire to Zeds, like environmental damage, which does help you a lot in battle. And of course each specialist is equipped with a gadget, which is actually really useful at saving a life. If you do find yourself running out of ammo or in a bad situation, you can equip your gadget, which is really good at, again, getting out of bad situations, clearing crowds, like no matter how big the Zed is. Now with Killing Floor 3, of course you don't have a syringe gun, which you can keep healing yourself with. You do have limited amount of syringes, and also there is no welder, so you have to basically utilise your syringes. And of course you can also get more syringe bags as well. You can even get ammo bags, turrets, armour. There's even equipment around the map like turrets, zip lines, you can get armour lockers. So each way you basically have to plan which equipment you're going to get. It definitely does add a little bit more strategy, rather than Killing Floor 2's idea of run and gun, which I do quite like a lot. It does encourage more teamwork and a lot more coordination. And speaking of teamwork, you do need it on Hell on Earth difficulty. Splitting up on Hell on Earth is a death sentence, and it is definitely recommended that you stick with your team. And also using the equipment like syringe and ammo bags and turrets definitely do go a long way. And with Killing Floor 3 as well, you've also got dark maps, so of course the flashlight is of course back. It actually lasts infinitely, which at the same time I do feel like they should make the flashlight a limited thing. Then it means it's difficult to spot Zeds, adds a bit more challenge. But at the same time I do like the infinite use flashlight, as it means the flashlight doesn't keep running out. Also speaking of flashlight, Zed time is definitely back, and with Zed time, each Zed is basically highlighted on the screen. Regardless of your level, you do run fast in Zed time, which I don't know, I feel like that's a good and a bad thing. I do feel like with the ability to run fast in Zed time, it means you can outrun Zeds really easily. And I do prefer Killing Floor 2's system of where you got to like max level, you can basically run fast in Zed time with Berserker, for example. Not to mention as well, at the top of your screen you've actually got a Zed time counter, so when the bar goes full it will activate Zed time, and I feel like I've kind of preferred it when it's a lot more random, and that way there's like a even chance of getting it. Whereas I feel like it is a little bit fixed in when you get it. So the grenades also return from Killing Floor 2 as well. You've got the HE grenade, the healing grenade, which is good, because then it gives the specialist like a different feel to each one. They at least have different types of grenades. And finally, one thing I want to mention is the hood. The hood is actually quite clean, which I did find surprising. I remember when they did first show off the hood, like over a year ago. Yeah, it didn't look too great in my opinion, but at least they have changed that a lot. And I can definitely see the changes. It's not too much in your face anymore. It's more of like in the corners, just like, you know, regular hoods in Killing Floor 2 and 1, which is nice. I do like my clean hoods. However, I do have some critiques with it as well. The countdown between each wave I think could be a bit smaller, rather than taking up the whole upper part of my screen. And to be fair with you, I think the crosshair on some guns are a bit big. So you've got the shotgun crosshair, which has like a massive box to it. And I feel like that crosshair could be a lot smaller. But apart from that though, it is a great hood. Moving on to one of the most important things about Killing Floor 3, the gore. Of course they have advertised this a lot and the gore is really good. It is amazingly detailed, so you know like what body part you hit. Head popping is definitely a thing. Headshots feel a lot more satisfying. There's actually a sound effect as well to let you know when you get a head pop, which is really cool. Not to mention as well, you can also paint guns in Zed blood and flesh. Really makes you feel like you've been through the thick of it. Not to mention as well, sometimes you can see Zeds running around with like no limbs or something. I've seen like a Scrake with like one arm, which is pretty funny. And taking off their limbs as well does make them a lot easier to take down. So prioritising those weak spots are definitely a must have. Not to mention as well, the glory kills are also coming to Killing Floor 3 and they are very satisfying. You don't get them very often, but when you do, it is really cool to see. Zeds can also glory kill you as well, so you have to be careful of that. But I definitely think the animation was quite clean with the glory kills. And like I mentioned before, Zed time is definitely back, which does highlight the Zeds in the map. And also the gore I think works very well with Zed time, as it does create some satisfying moments. So of course to kill Zeds you need weapons, and how does the weapons feel, you may ask? One thing I do like about the weapons is they are incredibly detailed. You got like little buttons, pipes and like screens on the weapons. It definitely does add that detail to the game. It does make the weapons feel a lot more realistic. It's a mix of realism and futurism, which is quite cool. Also, in my opinion, I think the weapon inspections are actually quite clean. They do show off the weapons, like, smaller details quite well. And the weapons aren't strong or weak. They sort of feel quite balanced, without any attachments, of course. Now, moving on to the Zeds themselves, I do feel like the Zeds have been upgraded. I feel like these are, like, one of the best things about Killing Floor 3. Because, of course, it provides a lot more challenge, because now the Zeds have newer abilities. The small Zeds are a lot more of a threat. Not only can you kill them, they will actually crawl towards you if you don't finish them off. And they also have range attacks as well, which makes them quite deadly. But Killing Floor 2, you could easily outrun them, a lot of them. Whereas now it is a little bit more difficult because they do actually have range attacks. Bloats are a lot more tankier. They have quite a few range attacks of their own as well, although you can still kill them by aiming for the head. Husks, I think, have a big upgrade to them. Of course, now they're not only on the ground, they can also fly around everywhere. It does make them a lot more difficult to hit, and you do basically have to keep an eye out because they can flank you from absolutely anywhere. The Scrakes in Killing Floor 3 are also a lot more involved with the fight. Unlike Killing Floor 2 where they'll stand at a distance and slowly walk towards you, they will actually grapple you, which does make them a bit more of a challenge rather than just killing them from a distance. And I do feel like they have upgraded the Scrake quite a lot, because now he is a bit more involved. Not to mention as well, the Flesh Pounders have also been upgraded. They have new attacks like extended arms, so they can hit you further, although you can use your movement to dodge it. Even the bosses feel unique and challenging as well. Like, each boss has like a unique attack, a unique feel to them. For Killing Floor 2 bosses, I feel like they were a little bit of a pushover, because you could easily just outrun them and kill them immediately. It might just be me, but I do feel like the Killing Floor 3 Zeds put up a bit more of a challenge. Of course, when you do know how the boss works, you can kill it easily. But I do feel like they do provide a bit more of a challenge to them, rather than Killing Floor 2's bosses. Rather than just charging at you, they can fire rockets at you, they can teleport, they can ground slam. It's pretty insane what they can do. It does again feel a lot more challenging. Moving on to the other side of the game, the Specialists themselves. Now, here's the thing. I feel like the characters do have some personality to them, and to be fair, I did laugh at some of their lines a little, because they are actually kind of funny. Although some of them can feel a bit basic, a little bit stale at times. You know, they're definitely not the worst characters I've seen. I do also like how Luna or Nikata can also speak their own languages, like Nikata speaks Japanese. Definitely does add that personality and a bit more character to the person. Does make the Zed outbreak feel like it's a bit more worldwide. And just as an important note, you can also use off-perk weapons, which I feel like would have made Specialists a lot worse if it wasn't. On-perk weapons, like the Artemis Marksman, does feel like a commando weapon, although it is actually a sharpshooter weapon, and you can buy it with sharpshooter without needing to go off-perk. So again, there is a couple of off-perk weapons on the actual perk itself. And not to mention as well, with weapon attachments, you can also buy like shotgun underbarrels or an underbarrel grenade launcher. So you're not like fully limited to your character's weapons in a way. You can still use like a firebug loadout. Want to be a firebug but you're stuck with a sharpshooter. So what can you do in between waves? So whilst you're waiting for the next Zed wave to come in, you can shoot cameras, horsing tech, gain materials to help build attachments. You can also get resources when fighting Zed, such as Zed Tech. And when you do go to the trader, it does work a lot differently to Killing Floor 2. So you do have more than one of the same gun, but each of those weapons have like a pre-built attachments to them. You have your regular gun and then you've got like some attachments that the game randomly gives you, which I think is good because if you're level 1 you don't have any attachments unlocked, then it is a good way of still standing a chance. Because weapon attachments are quite useful in Killing Floor 3, and the fact that you can have them at level 1 as pre-built is pretty cool. Not to mention, any weapon that you have customized will also be added to the trader. So of course you can buy that in-game. And one thing I found out as well, you can actually upgrade your armor up to like tier 4, which does make it stronger and more durable in battle. Of course, armor is a very big thing in Killing Floor. If you don't have it, you will die. And with the addition of weapons, you can also buy different traps as well, which is definitely useful. You can also buy healing and ammo bags, which again does encourage a lot more strategy. And also, not to mention, you can also switch between different perks as well to get some off-perk weapons. And one thing I do like about the trader, you can actually give dosh to other players, like without leaving the screen. So you can basically pick an amount you want to give to a player, but you can also still throw dosh at a player regularly by pressing B. So that idea hasn't fully gone. So in terms of map design and layout, how good is each map? And in terms of the maps themselves, like the layout, I do feel like each map does flow quite well. You can move around with ease. There are tons of zip lines and ways to get out of each area. So of course, it's not like a linear path you can take. There is different areas you can go to. And of course, each map is filled with tech, which you can shoot to get your attachments. I feel like as well, the music in the game helps bring out the map's atmosphere. For example, with Synthetic's Trader Time music, it does make the dark maps feel a bit more scarier in a way. And speaking of maps, in terms of story, I do feel like it has a good foundation for a story, Killing Floor 3. You know, the addition of radios and people speaking on them definitely adds a bit more immersion and personality that the other two lacked. And with the radios as well, it gives me that classic COD Zombies feeling. Because basically in World at War Zombies, you could find like radios around the map, which gave you like an idea of the story, which I think is a really cool addition. I think Killing Floor definitely needed some more depth to their story, and I think the radios are a good job at like displaying that. So what do I think of Killing Floor 3 as a whole? Would I recommend this game to people? And what do I think of the future of this game? Well, first of all, I am going to start off with the specialist system, as I know that is a controversial point for quite a few people. And to be fair with you, I'm not happy or upset with the specialist system in the game. It's one of those things you sort of get used to the more you play. It's really difficult to explain, but you do genuinely get used to it. But the way I've seen the specialist system, I've never really been too bothered with it. I know some people will be bothered by it, and if you don't like the specialist system, then that's fine. I'm not forcing anybody to like it, but all I will say is at least give it a chance in game. Of course, people do have their different opinions in the game, so of course I can't just influence you to like it. And so again, it is one of those things that you will have to play to actually get an opinion on. I know some people will like it, some people won't, which is fine. And again, with voice lines, they can be quite funny actually. I do sort of relate to Mr. Foster, as I am a British person myself. I do find his insults funny and relatable to how we typically speak. I do quite like the other specialist voice lines. You know, like Nakata and Luna, who actually speak their own language sometimes. Definitely does add that character and personality to the game. Feels like the game is based all around the world. Like the Zed outbreaks are happening everywhere, not just in like the UK or the US. And one thing I do really like about Killing Floor 3 is the gameplay. Again, the Zeds and the pace of the game is just really fun and refreshing. In Killing Floor 2, you could outrun everything around you, whereas in Killing Floor 3, you basically have to stand and fight, pretty much. The Zeds have been massively upgraded, which has made them a lot more of a challenge, and it is a massive step up from Killing Floor 2, again with the gore and like the Zeds, the pace, the combat. Also, not to mention as well, the music is really good to listen to. I do think Rocky Gray and Synthetic did another good job. It is what you expect from a Killing Floor game, and it definitely does sound quite good. Not to mention as well, Zed Time is most definitely back, which I know quite a few people were unsure of, but it is certainly back, and it is pretty good. Although I'm still a bit unsure about it, there is a few things I think could be changed, but it definitely isn't that bad. In terms of map design, each map flows quite well. There's plenty of options to escape. You got zip lines, like holes in the walls. There's no like linear path to each map, which is what I like. You can basically go anywhere you want. And each map as well also feels quite unique to each other. You don't feel like you're in the same location every time. Although most of the maps are based in the US, each area does feel completely different. Also, each map does have their indoor and outdoor areas. So of course you can take cover from flying husks, or you can make a run for it if you get trapped doors. Again, the possibilities are endless. In terms of the stronghold and hub area, I wasn't too sure at first, but when you do think about it, it is really useful, as it is a place where you get your weapon attachments, test the weapons themselves. And I am a big fan of games with hub areas like Deep Rock and Helldivers. I do think it adds a bit more freedom to the game, as you can move around without being stuck inside a menu. Although at first it may not feel like a Killing Floor game, I think it is a good addition to introduce like the firing range, customization and all that. So what do I want to see for the future? Well, in the future, I definitely don't want to see any DLC weapons, pay to win or overpriced bundles. I think Killing Floor 2 was a little bit over the top. They did overcharge quite a lot. And by the way, I've already made a video on this. If you want to see it, it will be linked below. Another thing I want to see as well is good seasonal events. So you get like new guns, maps, story building, cosmetics, like all of that for free. Also alongside that, I think seasonal objectives with good rewards are a good idea. You know, it's something that gives the player a reason for wanting to come back. I feel like the last couple of Killing Floor 2 updates, there wasn't really any reason to come back to it. Whereas Killing Floor 3, I do feel like they need to have a bit more reward with each seasonal update. Like give the player a reason for wanting to keep coming back. Another thing I want to see as well is a lot more story building and deeper story. Like you could add like plot twists or like cliffhangers to each story. Definitely keeps the user hooked, like wanting to learn more. And I feel like the perfect story would definitely keep players engaged for like a long time. And finally, one last thing I want to see is other game modes like endless or possibly a new mode. That would definitely be quite cool. So far we've only had survival, but yeah, that is it. That is my first impressions of Killing Floor 3. And again, this is an early look at the game, so of course things are subject to change. Don't take anything you see in this video as like a final product. And again, I did try and make this review as unbiased as possible. But yeah, so I'm going to end the video here. Are you going to get Killing Floor 3 or not? Do let me know down below. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe for the latest Killing Floor 3 stuff. And I'll see you in the next video.